received $5,000 in school supplies. Liberty Elementary School received second place and is getting $3,000 in school supplies. And Craycroft Elementary came in third place and received $2,000 in school supplies. World Silver Medalist. Congratulations to Audrey Jimenez for winning the 110-pound silver medal at this year's UWW Under 20 World Championships in Amman, Jordan. More than 600 students, teachers, and administrators gathered in Sunnyside Gym to watch Audrey's gold medal match in the Under 20 World Championships last Thursday. We are extremely proud of her accomplishments and love that Sunnyside community is rooting for her and showing their support. This concludes the superintendent's report. Thank you.
Thank you. Those wishing to address the governing board on items.
Board recognition.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Board recognition. Okay, so let's go downstairs.
I'll have to use my outside voice. So if I can have our honorees come up, Mr. Pudi and Daniela, right? And then we also have another student who couldn't join us today, so I'll brag about all of them. So all right. Tonight we have the pleasure of recognizing Sunnyside High School's Emergency Medical Services Program, led by Mr. Cootie, a certified EMT and paramedic himself. Most notably, we'd like to celebrate two of our senior students, Daniela Vega Barrios and Krista Cepeda Ramirez, who are currently third year students in the EMS program. Daniela and Krista enrolled in the inaugural EMT class that began last year, EMT 100, which is a 9-college credit dual enrollment course. While also balancing their other classes and commitments, these students passed all of their exams with an 80% or higher, making them eligible to take their industry national certification exam. Daniela and Krista have successfully passed the National Registry and EMT's exam this summer on their first attempt as juniors in high school. This rigorous exam consists of 2 components, a comprehensive written assessment and a hands-on practical evaluation. Both students are now nationally certified emergency medical technicians who can serve on emergency response vehicles. Sunnyside High School is one of the first high schools in Arizona to offer testing to junior year students. This unique opportunity qualifies them to take additional medical courses at Pima JTED, strengthening their educational foundation in the sciences and the field of medicine. This certification and level of experience will certainly open many doors for Daniela and Krista. So congratulations to both. And of course, we'll honor Mr. Cootie for your leadership in the classroom. Thank you. Thank you so much. Do you want to start off? Do you want to say a few words?
I can say a couple things. Put me on the spot, why don't you? All I have is praise for my students, right? I mean, I can be up there in front of the class. I'm telling them funny stories. They're the ones putting all the work in. They're the ones listening to the lecture, listening to me talk, trying not to fall asleep. And they're the ones putting in the effort. So really, it's all up to them. They're the ones that are taking this test, and this test is no joke. I took the test. I failed it my first shot. I have no problem admitting that. And I failed it 2 years after she would have taken it. She passed her first shot. Krista passed her first shot. We have a bunch of seniors who passed their first shot too. But to be able to do it their junior year, it's wild. It really opens up opportunities for them their senior year to go attend at JTED, to really expand their knowledge, and I'm just glad to be a part of it. That's it. Thank you.
Your classroom is awesome.
Oh, I love my classroom.
The classroom is amazing. It's
Anytime
like,
you want to come check it out.
oh, yes.
It's changed since last time you were there.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Oh,
twice.
gotta go back.
You're welcome to.
Just want to say a few things. I want to thank Mr. Cootie. He doesn't give himself enough credit. I mean, just an advocate for our students. And, and ever since he joined Sunnyside, he's been pushing our students towards these certifications. And if you ever get an opportunity to visit his classroom, it's something else. I mean, he's got the classroom side of things, and then he's got the hands-on side of things where they emulate a EMT ambulance there and triage station. So real life opportunities. The other thing is, I from what I understand, our students are also doing some ride-alongs, and we got that in place. So just a, awesome person, just a great advocate for our students. In terms of Daniela and Crystal, when we talk about our profile of a graduate, these are model students right here. They're getting that pre-K-12 experience we talk about, right? In terms of leaving us prepared. They're juniors. They still have another year to prepare. But, when we talk about the high school experience, we talk about getting involved and taking a sequence of CTE courses where you have the opportunity to earn industry certification, right? Check that box already for these two young ladies. Earn dual credit, right? So Pima College credit. Check that box, and the work experience, right, that they're getting on these ride-alongs. And so it just makes me super, super happy to see that, this is what can be accomplished, right, when you put your mind to it. So just a wonderful thing. I also want to thank Mr. Castro. Do you want to come up and say a few words? Our director of CTE, who oversees all our career and technical education programs. With his support, as well, we're having some great things accomplished.
I know I'm going to say things quickly, Mr. Bustamante. To me, this is huge, and I really wanted to recognize these two young ladies because coming from Pima JTED, this exam was only reserved for seniors, because that's the way the sequence goes. And for Mr. Cootie a couple of years ago to say, you know what, not only do I want to give the students an opportunity to get the EMR certification, I want them to get the EMT certification. So what he did was he essentially shifted gears, and he shifted his expectations to say, our students can do this. And not only can our students do this, our younger students can do this. The opportunities that they've created for themselves just by passing this exam are huge. And so that tool belt that we always talk about when it comes to CTE, that's a huge tool in their tool belt. So I just want to say thank you so much for shifting gears, Mr. Cootie. Thank you for responding and coming up to those levels of expectations. We're very proud of you and your peers and the seniors who already graduated, who are, I think some of them are serving on trucks already as well, correct?
They're looking into it. Some started Fire Academy. They're joining U of A EMS. They're looking into all sorts.
They chose their own adventure. So thank you guys.
They're in the more middle. More in the middle. I don't want to block them. No, it's no more. Will do. I'll make sure you get to it.
Thank you. I didn't see that. I forgot.
That's awesome. Awesome.
Okay, do over. Okay. Now call to the audience. Those wishing to address the governing board on items on or not on tonight's agenda may do so at this time. Speakers are requested to hold their comments to 3 minutes. In accordance with the Arizona Open Meeting Law, board members may not respond, comment, or ask questions of speakers regarding issues not on the agenda. First one, Elizabeth Moe.
Good evening.
My name is Elizabeth Mall, and this is the last school district in Pima County that I will be visiting. And I need to say, I saved the best for last. This is really a comfy, cozy atmosphere, and usually I'm way back here and, looking up at the diocese, and so it's very, very warming, so thank you very much. I am on the Pima County Republican Executive Board as a member at large, and before retiring, I was assistant principal at Tucson High Magnet School with Dr. Murado as principal, director of instruction for TUSD with Steve Holmes as also director, and I was also principal of University High School. So even though I am retired, I am very interested in our schools and our children's education. I'm here this evening to discuss Public Law 108477. I hope you're already aware of this law and your school district plans to faithfully follow its tenets. Public Law 108447 designates September 17th, or if this date falls on a Saturday or Sunday, as it does this year, Monday, September 18th, or Friday, September 15th, as Constitution Day. The Constitution Day legislation directs each educational institution that receives federal funds for a fiscal year to hold an educational program about the U.S. Constitution for its students. In the coming month, it has been our intent to communicate with each of the school districts in Pima County the importance of enthusiastically recognizing and participating in Constitution Day. So far, the enthusiasm from school districts and libraries has been outstanding. The public libraries have ordered over 1,000 school pocket constitutions. They're doing podcasts. They have read-ins. The schools are doing contests, essay writings, and plays. And we ask that Sunnyside School District communicate to parents the objective to accomplish at each grade level for Constitution Day and how professional development time will be used to communicate the importance of this law. Studies indicate only 32% of citizens can identify the three branches of the federal government. According to AZ state standards, the three branches of the federal government are to be taught in the third grade. Recently, I looked up Sunnyside School District's mission statement, and again, let me compliment you. Your mission and vision statements are the best that I've seen as I've looked through all of the school districts in the county. But it says, our mission is to develop students with a strong sense of identity, purpose, and agency, so that they leave our system as effective learners who act with purpose to achieve the conditions they desire in their own and others' lives. Our country's Constitution was based on those rights of a strong sense of identity and effective learners. So I do hope Sunnyside students will be studying and learning about the Constitution, not only on September 17th, but throughout the year. There are many Constitution activities aligned with state standards available from the Department of Education. Please have your teachers take advantage of these. Thank you so much for your time.
Elizabeth Fleming.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Elizabeth Fleming. I go by Betsy. I am the school liaison at Davis-Monthan Air Force Base. And I wanted to introduce myself in case you might recognize me, might not. Sir, he recognized me. What I do is I represent the 7,000 military kids in the local area, age 3 through 12th grade. And in addition to working with students, I am a free resource for our local community schools or schools in the community. Last March, we invited schools out to Davis-Monthan for STEM Day before the air show. And we had over 476 students, and most of them were Sunnyside. So it was amazing, and they had a blast. They left with STEM kits and they got to see some of the airplanes up close and personal, got to tour our C-130s. It was amazing. So one of the things, I'm part of our STEM team that's at Davis-Monthan, and we have 2 events coming up that are free for the community. One of them is going to be another STEM kind of a event on October 20th for 7th through 12th graders. And it's part of our Davis-Monthan, I'm just going to read it here. Davis-Monthan Air Force Base STEM team would like to invite the middle and high school students from the local Tucson area for a STEM fair on 20 October from 10 to 2 at Davis-Monthan. In support of Air Force Air Combat Command Project Caseta, the purpose of this event is to inform, influence, and inspire tomorrow's Air Force leaders. We will be fostering youth engagements by partnering with minority-serving institutions and underrepresented groups to highlight Air Force education and career opportunities in aviation-centric career fields. Students can expect to engage with representatives from associations such as the Civil Air Patrol, the Air Force ROTC, and the Air Force Academy. Students will also be receiving STEM kits and other merchandise as symbols of our thanks. Information was sent out. I haven't heard anything yet from Sunnyside, but other schools are responding. We even sent out to the Tohono O'odham Nation, and they will be attending this event. Another event we're going to be offering is actually for teachers K through 12. And this is another free. It's a weekend, 2-day event with the Air and Space Forces Association in March. So this is going to be coming up. It's going to be 2 full days, a Saturday and Sunday. The project will be a 2-day STEM camp that will expose the participating teachers to different lessons and approaches to provide their students with a basic understanding of what STEM is and how it affects their daily lives. The aim will be to give the teachers the tools to instill a desire to continue learning about STEM throughout their students' lives. The program will consist of short lectures followed by hands-on applications of what was discussed during the lectures. There will be guest speakers to help expand the participants' knowledge of STEM. Some of the examples, they're going to be building paper balloons, building automatons and more, and discuss the future of aerospace and STEM in the Air Force. Attendees will be able to get up close and personal because it's also going to be our Heritage Weekend. So they're going to be able to see the planes going and get up and touch, and we're hoping to be able to also tour. I'm trying to get a C-130 ride along. We'll see how that works. So I wanted to just send that invitation, and anybody who is interested, they can contact me directly. I do have business cards, but I think the superintendent has information. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Herrera? Don't do it.
That's why I'm doing it. So, good evening, board members, Superintendent. My name is Yolanda Herrera. For those that don't know this information, Becky is, I always say she's my older sister, but she really isn't. She's my younger sister, and I'm extremely proud of her. She's gone through some really difficult times in the very recent last year and this year. So I want to do something special for her, and that is to celebrate her 70th birthday. Yes. So I'm presenting her with my mother's favorite plant, which is the orchid, and in white, because it does represent the purity of Becky's heart and the love of her community. I have one of her birthday cards here. A 70th birthday is a reason enough for one-of-a-kind celebration. Yet more than the years, it's the hearts you have touched that make you a real inspiration. So happy 70th birthday. What's more important, and a lot of people don't know this, is Becky has been volunteering in this community for kids and families and everybody around. She learned that from my parents, but she's been doing this for half of her life. 35 years. So I think everybody should give her a round of applause. That's incredible and amazing. Oh, Happy 70th, little sister.
Thank you for telling the world I'm old. Thank you.
I have the cards.
I love you too. Thank you. I'll loan you mine. Thank you. We're not supposed to talk. So, do I have a motion for consent agenda?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda items 3B through 3Q as submitted.
Roll call.
Mr. Bustamante,
Yes.
Ms. Hernandez. Mr. Jaramillo,
Aye.
Mr. Rodriguez,
Yes.
and Mrs. Quintero.
Aye. Thank you. General functions, we have maintenance and operations and district additional assistance override election update.
Before I begin, I want to wish you a very happy birthday.
Thank you.
Thank you for your service to the Sunnyside community. It shows a lot of integrity as far as what this district is concerned, and I'm so happy to be here, and I'm blessed. Thank you for the opportunity, President Quintero, members of the Governing Board, Superintendent Gastelum, to give you an update on the maintenance and operation and district additional assistance override election. As you know, a couple of months ago, the Governing Board adopted a resolution calling for the election. So I just wanted to give you an update as what has transpired since then. When I present information about the override, I have to provide factual information, and there's certain information that I have to include in the presentation, including the purposes of the overrides and then the cost. So I will go over that again. The maintenance and operation override is an 8% of the revenue control limit, which will roughly generate about $8 million. It is now known as Proposition 498. And in that proposition, we're including some of the district priorities that are focused on schools and students and staff. First and foremost, to maintain school safety and security, maintain critical positions that directly support student academic growth. We roughly have about 118 positions that are funded through ESSER, and those funds will be expiring soon, so hopefully we can continue supporting those, as well as strengthening programs that prepare students for the workforce and college, and providing support for all students through music, art, dance, and other athletic programs. And then the last two bullet points focus on staff, mostly retain and attract quality teachers, and staff with competitive salaries, and last but not least, maintaining a competitive decompressed classified employee salary schedule. And, you know, we did a lot of work last year in restructuring our salary schedules, so we want to be able to continue supporting them well. So maintenance and operation is Proposition 498. The next one is our district. There we go. The district additional assistance override, and that is roughly a $7 million worth of capital funds, and this is known as Proposition 499. Again, we are required to display on our ballot and a voter information pamphlet a breakdown as far as where we anticipate spending those funds. Again, the $7 million. About half of the funds going to critical safety and security improvements and modernization of our aging school buildings. We really need to focus on that and making sure that our buildings are safe for staff and students. Maintain attractive athletic and fine arts facilities, $1.4 million slated for that. Provide classroom technology, curriculum, furniture, and equipment to support increased student achievement, $1.4 million. And then last but not least, $700,000 for new school buses and service vehicles to maintain a safe and reliable fleet, totaling $7 million. On the next slide, we have the information as far as the percentages of each override or the amounts for each. 8 million in M&O, district additional assistance 7 million. The estimated annual tax rate for each one, $1.36 for M&O, $1.18 for the district additional assistance. And then we multiply that times the estimated average valued home in the Sunnyside school district boundaries. So the estimated average is 100,210. Please keep in mind, this is the assessed value, not the market value. So we all know that the assessed value will always be lower than what our homes we think are worth. The estimated annual tax impact on the average home, $136 for M&O, $118 for district additional assistance. So for the total for both of these overrides, the estimated monthly impact on the average home is $21.20 a month. I do have a couple of footnotes there. The maintenance and operation override is subject to phasing out. As we know, it's in effect at 8% for the first 5 years, and then it phases down to 66% or 5.33% of the revenue control limit and 2.67% in the last year, in year 7. The district additional assistance override is not subject to phasing out, so it's for the full amount for the entire 7 years. But this one is limited to either the 7 million that we're asking for or 10% of our revenue control limit. So it's important to make sure that our revenue control limit, which is driven by student enrollment and all those other factors, is at least $100 million so that we can achieve the full 7 million for the entire 7-year term of the override. I can pause here if there are any questions at this point.
Okay, thank you.
So what's been going on up to this point in time? I mentioned earlier that the governing board called the election in June, and by July 5th, we delivered the signed resolutions calling for the election to the Pima County School Superintendent's office. On July 19th, or by July 19th, we submitted the voter information pamphlet information to the Pima County School Superintendent's office. August 9th was our deadline to post the notices of election and provide the affidavit of posting to the Pima County School Superintendent's office. So that's been done. So you'll see that all these are bolded, so that means those are the items that have been completed. August 11th, Friday, August 11th was the deadline for submitting signed for and against arguments to the Pima County School Superintendent's office. And I'll explain that in a little bit more detail. August 19th are the informational pamphlet and ballot proofs ready for jurisdiction's review. So we have reviewed our ballot, and since this is a consolidated election, there will be other measures on the ballot as far as the mayor's race, council races, as well as, I believe it's Proposition 413. I can't remember the number exactly. But it seems that all the propositions related to school districts will be appearing on the back of the ballot. So we've joined ventures with other superintendents, and I'm sure Mr. Gastelum can speak a little bit more about that, to make an official request that all questions be on the front of the ballot, given some of the statistics that are related to double-sided ballots. We want to make sure that everybody knows that our questions are on there and they are not missed. Some of the upcoming deadlines, again, not necessarily district deadlines, but just information here. Last day to mail informational pamphlets is October 3rd. Last day for voter registration, October 10th. And then the ballots would be mailed no earlier than 27 days before the election, which is October 11th. And then last but not least, November 7th, Election Day, and mail ballots must be received by 7 p.m. that day.
Any questions? No.
Okay, so as far as the request for and against arguments, we did post that on our district website as required. And the physical notices of election were posted more than what was required. We posted at the district office in all district schools. And those notices, I don't know if you've seen them, but they're in a lovely shade of pink, right? So I am happy to report that the voter informational pamphlet will have 10 statements supporting both our propositions and none against. Okay, and in here I've included a list of all the pro statements, or the 4 statements that were submitted. First and foremost, the governing board statement was included in the resolution that was adopted in June. Letter in support of the election or the propositions from the City of Tucson Mayor Regina Romero, council members Richard Fimbres and Lane Santa Cruz, Consuelo Hernandez, thank you, on behalf of also her siblings, Alma and Daniel, state representative and legislative district 21, from the City of Tucson Chief of Police Chad Kasmar, former SUSC Superintendent Steve Holmes, Sunnyside High School graduate and community leader Patrick Robles, a letter from the Sunnyside Foundation from Michael Barton and Elizabeth Soltero, and last but not least, former board member Buck Crouch and his wife Ada. I think we have a great list, great support here.
Yes, we do.
So again, factual information is all that we can provide at school-sponsored events, and this on behalf of the district. Again, some of those events would include a cafecito with the principal, school safety nights, and other events that may be coming up. Also on file with the Pima County School Superintendent's Office, a political action committee has been established, and it is called Yes, Yes for Sunnyside Schools in support of Prop 498 and Prop 499. And I've included their website here, and they have more information as far as how you can get involved with them. And that is the extent of the presentation. I could entertain any other questions at this point.
Ms. Hernandez.
I just want to say thank you for providing the information, and I also just want to recognize a lot of the faces that I see in this room that were at the auditorium meeting that we had hosted, and I know a few of those will be coming along, and I just want to say I appreciate the involvement of everyone in here, because it really makes a difference when people are showing up and recognizing who's leading them cares about their staff and their students as well. And all factual information. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Jaramillo.
Yes, I'll say thank you as well. And I really like the way it's worded to support our students within our community. And I think that's important, because that's what this override should be for, right, to support our students in the community. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. This
Thank
is
you.
great information. Thank you.
Thank you.
K-12 grading update.
Good evening, President Quintero, Governing Board members, Superintendent Castellum. Just wanted to touch base back about the grading update that we have. What I want to show you is we had the opportunity with our West Ed partners. This isn't their primary work that they do with us, but while they were here, one of the young men who works on their team has just a great rapport and has been working with a lot of our students at the high schools. And we asked him if he would just do a little video work, and Katrina also helped with this, to find out from students how, it wasn't about finding kids to talk about do they like grading or do they not, but to really hear from kids how they saw this and does it impact their learning. And so we have that for you. So it's better to hear it from the kids than it is from us. So it's a little bit, it's about a 7-minute video. So I want you to hear, but you'll hear students, you'll see the questions that they were asked. You'll hear their responses, and they're students from Desert View High School, Sunnyside High School, and Star High School. So it's just a really powerful just our kids are amazing. And what they're able to talk about is just really speaks a lot to the adults and how we need to listen to their learning. So I will let Jane. I'm not going to touch it, right?
So the new grading system allows every student to have the opportunity to show what they know based off of their level of understanding. There's no extra credit, and we're able to assess ourselves with learning targets, success criteria to make sure that we meet that level of understanding.
I would say the new grading policy is basically
All right,
the way you would
We'll start it again because you got to get the beginning, basic.
So the new grading system allows every student to have the opportunity to show what they know based off of their level of understanding. There's no extra credit, and we're able to assess ourselves with learning targets, success criteria to make sure that we meet that level of understanding.
I would say the new grading policy is basically the way you would comprehend your learning and the way you learn yourself as a student.
So the new grading system gives students lots of opportunities on things like exams and assignments. It's not really focused on you being a good worker. It's more of you being a good student. And the way that they really make sure that they understand your level of understanding is they give you multiple opportunities for retakes, for redos, for makeups. And it's not like, if you don't do it by the end of this week, oh well. Like, sure, you can't redo an assignment, say it by the end of this week, oh well. Like, sure, you can't redo an assignment, say for makeups. And it's not like, if you don't do it by the end of this week, oh well. Like, sure, you can't redo an assignment, say
While we're pulling that up, one of the pieces that as we
the
talk
beginning of the
about
semester, but you are still given multiple opportunities to redo things like assignments, or if you did bad on a test, you could always ask for a redo just to make sure that the teachers understand your level of understanding.
Something that's different between the letters and the new grading system, I think it's the ability of learning, the ability of you understanding the topic, of you understanding the class. Because there's some classes that before, if you did the work, you got them done, and now it's more about what you're good at and what can you improve on. So before it was more like assignments and something that you can do easily and something that your teachers don't usually really look into it, but now it's more on your learning, so they have to be sure you understand the topic before moving into a new topic. And if more people get it, well, they move into the topic, but if not a lot of people get it, you have to repeat the topics.
Well, the new grading system focuses more on students' learning and how well they did, like with certain assignments and certain topics.
this one. I can't because it's downloading. Why we're pulling this up, why I'm patiently pulling this up here in this space here. One of the things, once we have this piece that's there, is what's striking about this video is what is shared by are students that are valedictorians and that are from STAR, and their understanding, their experiences have been so different in the way that they've experienced high school and grading and what those pieces are. And their understanding of what they're trying to get to, which matters to them, which is the learning, is profound. And that they can articulate it. Not only do they see it, but that they can articulate it. These were students that were recommended by teachers or their coaches or whatever that spoke candidly on camera to Chase as he was asking these questions. And I think we shared this, last time I was here, we recently had the facilitation director from Crescendo Education, who is Joe Feldman's associate that did the work that we had this on. And we shared this video with teachers and with leaders who were there also. And it's easy, there's always a little bit of, well, you can find kids who would say the opposite, who would say, which is true. And we weren't looking for the kids who said this is a struggle, this isn't, because it's not about this being perfect, but it's about, can we create a system that truly reflects learning and doesn't just reward completion and compliance in that traditional way. One of the things that I really hope that we could do, I do you want to give us to Shane and maybe is this, thank you, is the conversation that we want to have with kids around how do they talk about their learning and how do we craft this and how do we have that conversation. One of the pieces that you have, and it's linked in here, and I wasn't going to open the links, but these are the two guidance documents that the committees put together to really talk about what it is. And one of the things that as the teachers watch that video and talk through, realizing that kids could articulate about the learning. It's still confusing. It's still hard. Particularly the secondary one, is difficult to do. But the conversations and the changes, the science, under Dr. Hackett, the science teachers, high school and middle school science teachers and math teachers did work last year around establishing rubric that say, what does it mean to be a consolidated learner, to be a 3? What does it mean to be an extended learner, to be a 4? The definitions or the detail of what a 4 looks like, an extended learner, is actually the most difficult, we're finding, for teachers to be able to put together and describe. So the English teachers and the social studies teachers, inspired by the work of their colleagues, that's their work this year. They want to come together, them talking about what does it look like, what does it sound like if a student is a 3, if the student is a 4. The levels beneath that, in the 2s and the 1s, they're just easier for them to do because they can take the standards and they can take the content and they can kind of back that up to see what are those pieces and what are those misses that are in there. But the conversations that the teachers had that day, after they had an opportunity to hear the why, again, why we're doing equitable grading, why does it matter, why is the learning piece there, why don't we just do it the easy way and do a traditional scale. Their conversations afterwards at their tables, they're insightful. There's still some struggles. It's not a perfect system. There's a lot of questions that are but some of the teachers' ideas that they have working together to say, how do I adjust my practice to reflect this? They've been pretty remarkable for just a year and a half in. So the struggle, I'll tell you that the struggle that many of our teachers have, particularly high school teachers, have to do with Power School. And we know that Power School's a big company. And if it doesn't work the traditional way, it's very difficult. When Mr. Baca was here before and Frank McCormick worked in that department, they had a lot of conversations with Power School saying, in order for teachers to have the ease to reflect a grading system like this, but it just doesn't. So what's happening is there's a lot of workarounds, there's a lot of back end, but it makes it clunky. So the students can see, even though the grading scale is not set up in a 0 to 100 traditional piece, Power School, even though we have different pieces in and they're graded on the 4 to 0 rubric, when it prints in the top, not on the report card, but they can pull up and it gives a percentage and it gives points, which are not an accurate match to that because that's calculating in a different way. But there's no way for us to hide that. So they know that. We've talked about it. We continue to work around it. And I have to applaud our teachers for their continued working around this because it's the right work, trying to make Power School work better for us. It's something that Ms. Gallegos and I want to work with this year to say, are there ways we can put some pressure on Power School? Because the biggest stumbling block right now is Power School. But it's not just our grading system, it's our student information system. So we can't just say, oh, let's just change that and then we crash everything else in that space. So I put that out there because it is something that has been raised multiple times by the frustrations from the teachers. And we acknowledge that we're working around it. But the continued work with the committees, so for the secondary, they'll be working on the rubric pieces. They will be working through how they're going to do different rubrics and different pieces from within that space. I'm just going to go to that one for a second. So you'll see that their conversations around how to grade is also a piece that we want to bring out in their collaboration times. What we're finding is the teachers who talk together, who think through it and walk through it, they just have an easier time doing it. So we're working with individuals who are still struggling with how do I translate this. It usually has to do with an older way of doing assignments, which is completion and compliance, because it's really not looking for that. It's looking to say, do we have evidence that the student has learned this? So there's a little tug of war there, and that's going to take time. That's okay. The other piece of 612, actually, not all of you were up here when we did this, but there is a piece on the 612 report card that separates out behaviors from their learning. That was intentional, and they had the piece that has personal responsibilities. Mm-hmm. So each teacher also has the ability to rate that student. It's not in a grade, it's in like the ESNU format. Teachers, when we did the survey at the end of the year, they're 50-50 with that. Some teachers love that. Some teachers are like, it's a hassle because every teacher does it. It's not, in elementary, it's one for the student, but I could do something in math that I do different in English. And so the teachers have the ability to reflect that. So that will be a consideration that the committee will come back together by the end of the year to determine, do we want to leave that function on or do we want to take it off? Multiple opportunities continues to be a piece that we'll define. It's not about taking a test until I pass it. That's a myth. That's a misconception. It's about, and it broke where Gio was talking about that, it's about another way to show that I've learned it. So if I blow a test or an assignment and I don't get it right, it's not that I'm forever doomed to that. I may have a teacher who says, show me another way. If you can show me that you know this in another way, fine. A teacher also has the ability to say, it's a standard that they missed here, but it circles back around and it cycles back. If that student masters that in this other way, that works. That works in this space. So multiple opportunities, I think it often gets misconstrued to be, oh, so we just teach kids, or we just give them a test until they pass it. That's not the case. It's about finding different ways to really match that learning. The 0 that lives in the 4 to 0 for secondary, the 0 is really not about, it's about no evidence. So if a kid doesn't turn any work in, I have no evidence. But the grade piece is about no evidence. The behavior piece reflects the learning behavior of I have to be responsible and turn my own work in. So we're continuing. That's a deep legacy practice that we all experienced. And so that's a slow change that's occurring there. But this is year 2 for this secondary report card as we roll it out. And it's just continued refinement and conversations around it. I worked with Mr. Castro, and we've had to make some adjustments for PIMA for some of the dual enrollment classes because PIMA's, they operate in a different space. And so we've had to make some adjustments where sometimes the students have to work directly into their system. And so you may have a student who has a report card that has the 4 to 0 levels of learning on it, and then a B for PIMA math. Like there's just, instead of trying to pretend it was something else and try and work it in, we're just going to call it what it is. If they're in a dual enrollment class and that's their system, it'll be reflected on the report card as such. Any questions about the high school piece? Thoughts, questions?
Mr.
I
Jaramillo?
just have a question.
Sure.
What about the student has a hard time expressing themselves? How do you deal with that?
So one of the reasons that multiple opportunities is so powerful for that is because we have, it could be a student who's an English language learner, it could be a special education student. But the point is, can we obtain evidence of their learning? If it's not in the traditional way, or like how the rest of the kids are doing it, or if it's a verbal presentation, is there a way that the teacher can collect evidence of that student's learning? That's acceptable. So the teacher has to be able to justify the evidence just like they would in any grade, but it doesn't have to be the exact same. There's no prescriptive, it has to look exactly like this. It really tries to push this notion that says, does the student have the learning? Do they have the learning, and do they have it? The consolidated levels, the 3, it's like, do they have it solid? Is it really solid right there?
Now, how many other districts are doing this type of grading?
That's a great question. So nationally, there are a few more. In Arizona, Deer Valley is one that we did a lot of our modeling off after because they were about 2 years ahead of us. And so I was letting them make the mistakes, and then I was following, real close behind them. There are some other school districts who use the 50 to 100, so they do the minimum grading piece there. Catalina Foothills uses a different version. We spent a lot of time in conversation with Cat Foothills also in how they do it. They were helpful to us in thinking through we're similar to theirs. Phoenix, there's a couple other high schools in Phoenix that are doing it. Buckeye has it. There's some I want to say Cibola High School in Yuma. Nationally, there's a few more. When we talk to colleagues about this, one of the things that I have heard, and we're pretty good at not doing this, is we've talked to some colleagues where they've taken it out there and then it was hard, and so they just pulled it back. And so that's not the way we roll. If it's hard, we keep figuring it out and keep working until we make sure that it's reflective of what it is.
Okay, now, if one of our students transfer to another district,
correct,
how does that grade carry over to the new district?
That's a great question. And when we did this, we checked with them and also post-secondary. So we called talked to a lot of post-secondary universities, from state universities we talked to Stanford, we talked all the way around. And here's what we learned. They said, you have to understand that there are a bunch of different ways people do grading. And so in the transcript, and we have a thing that's in the transcript that talks about what those levels are, they're like, it's not a problem. So, and for universities, not a problem at all. They actually, one of them laughed at us. They were like, yeah, we could do this, So it is the transcript. So in the transcript, we have, and it's actually shown in this, is how it can translate if it needs to show as an AB grade. We have a translation to this, but it's not, and it states this in the bottom, it's not about this equals A, this equals B, but so there is a calculation that's off to the side that tells you how you can, if you have to have a letter grade on a transcript, how you can get that letter grade on there.
Thank you.
Same thing for algebra purposes.
Yes.
Ms. Hernandez?
I just want to recognize Ms. Batten, because you've pretty much taken this under, and so have a lot of your colleagues around you. But something that I want to recognize is, like you mentioned, we haven't just completely scrapped it. Mm-hmm. When the conversations were first beginning, I went to a few of the meetings, but we started off completely different from where we're at now. And that was because of the feedback that you and everyone involved took. And that was parents, students, teachers, everyone involved I know the invitation was also extended to anyone that wanted to be a part of the conversations. So that's something that I think when we're talking about grading, we could come up here and tell you, like, this is how we should do it. But that's not how it really was. It was like everyone that isn't impacted by grading should be a part of the conversation. So that's something that I appreciate, because normally that's not how things work. People that are doing whatever it is are never part of the conversation. I just want to say thank you too, because I think for me, at least as a board member, I am invested in making sure that all of our students are ready for the real world. And for me, that translates into comprehension. And this is a complete 360 shift on grading. We were A through F.
Yep.
Always. And we completely changed this. We're still in the early stages, but it's going to be a learning process and continue to be a learning process for everyone. But at the end of the day, I'm really excited about the work being put in, because I know that when our students graduate our schools and they move on, we made sure that they comprehended the subject, not just complete your assignment.
Yes.
And that's the goal of this mind shift, I guess, if you want to call it that. So I just want to say thank you. I'm really excited about the work.
You're welcome. And I have to tell you, I appreciate this support, because it is not, we knew it wasn't going to be an easy transition, and it's not done. It is still, it's painful. Grading to high school teachers is a very personal, deep thing, and it has been a slow turn. But what you're saying is right. And we have already talked to the students on the video that are seniors about and they're going to college all over the place. Vanderbilt, we have one at Western New Mexico who's on. So when they're done with their freshman year, we want to talk to them again to say, help us learn what that is, because oftentimes people will see this and say, well, colleges, they just do the 0 to 100, and that's not true. You know, every professor does things differently. And what we try to do to get for the kids to understand is, if you've learned that, it doesn't matter what system is set up in front of you, that you got this. You can find your way through that, or you have the resources to do that. So it is a work in progress, and I am by no means a fan favorite around this work, and that's okay. It's about us continuing to figure it out. And the beauty of this work is it changes teachers' practice in an indirect way, because it's thinking about evidence. It's not thinking about who finished this ditto, that's an old word, this worksheet, that's right. Who finished this worksheet? Did you get it done? Check. No, it is like, did you learn this? And some of our high-flying kids are struggling in that space, because they're used to playing the game, and they can get the points and they can do it. And when it comes down to actually show their learning, it's, for some of them, we've had some really good conversations about, wow, like, yeah, but now I know it. So that's been a turn.
Mr. Costello.
Yeah, just a couple things. It's disappointing that we can't see these videos, because the student testimonials are just, it says it all right there. And so we'll get those videos to you. We'll make sure we get those posted on the website. One of the students that spoke in those videos talked about not being labeled by a letter grade, right? And so we have, and then our students at STAR who have had different challenges and now doing really well. Testimonials were just right on, right? In terms of this piece of understanding that evidence of learning is more important than this completion compliance piece. And Ms. Bent said it very well. I mean, I know when I was in high school, I played the points game, right? I knew exactly how many points I needed to get that A, to get that B, or to get algebra, whatever it was, right? Whatever the goal was at the time. And just to hear these student testimonials of, this really shows what I've learned. It's now based on evidence of learning, true reflection of your learning, right? Not this, bring in 2 bottles of hand sanitizer and get 100 points. It's none of that. I mean, that it eliminates these other pieces now. And so, but you know, that really, you know, resonated with me when you hear that student talk about, you know, when I got an F and got labeled, you know, now I was labeled as that F student, or you know, our you know, our different groups we serve, our ELLs, you know, our exceptional ed students, you know, it's now it's based on evidence of learning, you know, it's a level playing field now with this piece. And so I want to thank the team for their work and being diligent, right? Because it wasn't easy rolling this out. There were some difficult conversations, and there's still difficult conversations, but you know, we always talk about, you know, courage over comfort, right? We got to continue to be courageous in rolling this work out, because we know it's the right work for our students that will better prepare them, you know, in the long run. And, you know, talk about world experience and college experiences, you know, it's going to prepare them. So, you know, a lot to do still with it. I know last meeting Ms. Benton talked about some of the pre-service workshops that we had, opportunities for teachers, you know, so we brought in some speakers that were pretty powerful, and then there was a Q&A. There was time for them to ask questions and get answers. And so, you know, I also have to say, I would say the majority of our staff has been super receptive to this, right? I mean, even those that didn't agree with it at first, or probably still don't agree with it, are looking at this with an open mind, you know, and so, you know, we appreciate that.
We do. Power School is the only drawback.
It's a big drawback.
But if we separated Power School and the grading system, is that a possibility?
That's one of the things that Ms. Gagos and I are committed to, working with IT and thinking about and finding out if there are ways that we could put some pressure on Power School to do some customization for fee, I'm sure. But it is, I would like to say, like in elementary, we just created a workaround, but it's different than it is in high school. In high school, it's a challenge. It truly is.
Ms. Hernandez, did you have a question?
Yeah, to piggyback off of that, do we know what other school districts who are currently have this system in place are using?
I just asked that question to the consultant that came in, and she was going to do some looking. I do know that there's 2 of them that use Synergy, but I don't know. That was from her. Like, I'd want to talk to the schools to say, I don't want to trade one problem for another. Like, so you know what I mean? I want to know if there is a system that is probably customizable. To be honest, it's probably customizable. And I'll give you an example. So oftentimes the way, and it was 2 of my physics teachers or science teachers who brought this to light for me, is in Power School or in a grading system, no matter what you tell it, it still averages the grade, right? It's just looking for the mean, it averages it. Whereas when you're looking at equitable grading and you're putting in grades that identify learning, actually these 2 were pushing to say it's really the median grade that I need that tells me where my students are in that work. And so in order to, they'd have to go in by hand because Power School automatically does this other move. And so it's things like that, you know, that are in its system that create a lot of difficult. I felt you, but I didn't see you there.
I didn't mean to scare her.
That's good.
We have downloaded the video, so can we play the video?
Okay, that's good. And then I'll do a brief touch with the elementary piece when we come out. Now that we have you all hyped up for it, you're ready.
It's a great video.
Right, well, they're putting it to that computer. I'll tell you about elementary. Are we good with secondary? Okay. This is pivoting. This is just being nimble and,
15 years.
yeah, it's all right. So the elementary, we talked about more about this because this is more of a recent change, but it mirrors. I think one of the important pieces is that this really sets them up for this as it's mirroring them in I almost said in college, but in high school and in middle school. So the terms are the same. The way elementary graded isn't changing. Remember, they've already done this type thing, but we changed their levels of learning. So instead of the old test language of highly proficient and all that, they now have emerging, consolidated, developing, beginning, the same as them. Their big change happens around their specialists giving grades and science getting a grade rather than just ESNU. And the other big change for them is really that it is about the information at that grading period. So that's a big switch for them. So that piece takes me to something that Ms. Hernandez brought up a while back when we were talking about this. But one of the next steps that I really want as we get a better hold on this is to do a better job of helping our parents understand this shift. Part of it is, last year was a tricky year just because we were a little buried, to be totally honest. And I didn't do due diligence around making sure that we had voice, but not communicating it out. Like, what is this? How do we do that? So that's a goal this year for the elementary. Can do it in parent-teacher conference because their first report card goes side by side. Like, I'm sitting here with the parent, it's easy for me to talk them through. But for middle school and high school, one of the things that I want to do is be able to use, that was the original intent of this little video clip, but then we loved it so much, I was like, we could use this for lots of things, is to be able to help parents understand, because they experience the 0 to 100. They experience the A through F. And so it's like, it kind of is the mindset of, if it was good enough for me, why isn't it good? You know, that whole thing. And really being able to say to parents, what matters is the learning. So as we make the shifts and as we look at particularly our higher performing kids, and we talk about GPAs and point chasing, we know that we have some higher performing kids that will take a different class rather than boost their learning. They will take a different class to get the points for a GPA, and that's sad because that impacts their forever piece. And so as we work with parents this year, just helping them understand what it is at the base of that we're working to get. That'll be a slower conversation just as far as the understanding goes, because it's hard to separate all the jargon out of it. You know what I mean? It's so hard to, like, levels of learning. You know, I mean, it's kind of loaded in that way. But from my colleagues in other districts, they've done a lot of work around parent information, parent videos, parent pieces that we're going to look to take some ideas from. We have a little bit less funding for some of the committee work, but we've changed up some of our Wednesday collaboration times that we have, though I may be able to bring in some of the committee members in addition to have some other conversations that are around that.
But already, if we can have a video explaining what it is.
Yeah.
And saying out ideas.
Yes.
But if we can have a video also.
So the new grading system allows every student to.
Yes.
Similar to this.
Yes.
It would be nice. Then we could blast it out to parents.
Love that.
That would be like one sort of touch.
I like that idea. And I'm working with Jacob Phelps too. We have this on the website. This sits on the website now, and there's a translation to it. But when we first rolled this out, we did a lot with frequently asked questions, because that, for me, that's where I get all my information. So anytime questions came up, we were popping them on there. So I'm working on updating that webpage, but we have some great with Veronica and Alejandro to do some voiceovers and to be able to use the kids to help explain the why. I think that'd be really powerful. Okay, we're good?
So the new grading system allows every student to have the opportunity to show what they know based off of their level of understanding. There's no extra credit, and we're able to assess ourselves with learning targets, success criteria to make sure that we meet that level of understanding.
I would say the new grading policy is basically the way you would comprehend your learning and the way you learn yourself as a student?
So the new grading system gives students lots of opportunities on things like exams and assignments. It's not really focused on you being a good worker. It's more of you being a good student. And the way that they really make sure that they understand your level of understanding is they give you multiple opportunities for retakes, for redos, for makeups. And it's not like, if you don't do it by the end of this week, oh well. Like, sure, you can't redo an assignment, say at the beginning of the semester, but you are still given multiple opportunities to redo things like assignments, or if you did bad on a test, you could always ask for a redo just to make sure that the teachers understand your level of understanding.
Something that's different between the letters and the new grading system, I think it's the ability of learning, the ability of you understanding the topic, of you understanding the class. Because there's some classes that before, if you did the work, you got them done, and now it's more about what you're good at and what can you improve on. So before it was more like assignments and something that you can do easily and something that your teachers don't usually really look into it. But now it's more on on your learning. So they have to be sure you understand the topic before moving into a new topic. And if more people get it, well, they move into the topic. But if not a lot of people get it, you have to repeat the topics.
Well, the new grading system focuses more on students' learning and how well they did, like with certain assignments and certain topics. And the old grading system was more focused on getting more points. And it wasn't like necessarily focusing on like if you learn, but on whether you had the ability to do the assignments and if you could like turn them in on time. And like this learning system focuses more on like your ability as a student to learn and like how well the teacher sees you doing that.
I feel like with the old grading system, I always like to do solo work, but now that I know that my peers are resources and can actually like make my grade look better. Well, not just my grade, but learning can make my learning look better. I actively seek that out. I also see that with my friends. They ask me for a lot more help. They also ask teachers for more help for like clarification on learning targets, test criteria, or assignments.
My approach to learning has changed because now I feel like I can just do what I can do best and apply that to my work rather than previously before where I would feel like I need to try my absolute best and I need to get an A and I need to pass a class. It's definitely put less pressure on me as a student.
I've learned how to receive feedback. Like before I wasn't as good as receiving feedback, but this new policy like made me learn how to receive the feedback and how to improve my grades based off that feedback.
I feel like it's affected the way I see myself as a student and as a learner, as not so much as always an A student or always a B student, or even though we do have like high grades are good, low grades are, you could still improve on them. I definitely feel like it's less of a label and more of you are able to really show your understanding, and it's not really much of, oh, well, he gets 4s on assignments, we should ask him for help on everything. It's more of, well, he's a 4 student, so maybe he might give me some good feedback. And I just feel like now the new system really is more truthful in people's level of understanding as students.
With this new grading system, I see myself more as a better student, more motivated to come to school compared to having an ABC system. Students with the F or a D low grades in classes can feel unmotivated to come to school. They'll feel like it'll take a longer milestone to just move up from an F to a D to a D to a C. But with this new system, I feel like us students can have a better chance and better opportunities.
I define equity as an opportunity that everyone gets to do something. And the way I see it in the grading system is the fact that a lot of teachers allow you to redo assignments if you feel like you didn't do your best on that for whatever reason. They also make sure that they incorporate us. So like in one of my teachers, She allows us to make the learning targets and success criteria, which makes us, in my opinion at least, want to complete it, because since we said it, it's like almost betraying your word. Since I said it, I now want to do it, not just have to do it.
So I define equity as everyone having equal opportunities. I see equity in the new grading system by everyone having a fair chance to get the best grade possible.
Equity to me means that everyone has an equal opportunity. Not necessarily that everyone's the same, because that's just not true. But I definitely feel like equity, at least in the sense of this grading system, is that everyone always has an equal opportunity to do the same, and just having that opportunity that isn't always presented, unfortunately, not even in the real world all the time. But I definitely appreciate that now this sense of equity and everyone having the equal opportunities is really reflected in the grading system.
My hope for the new grading system is that many kids, adults, they don't feel just restricted, or they don't feel like disappointed, because it is harsh, back then with the old letter grades. But now with the number grades, I feel like it doesn't like label you like to being an A student or being an F student, it's like it just doesn't restrict you.
It's going to help a student be more responsible. It's going to help a student want to go to the class. It's going to help a student be passionate about what they want, or more confident on what they want, or more confident on what they want to do in their future. Because it's something that not a lot of people talk about, or something that's like, oh yeah, I want to do this, I want to do that, but they're not given the opportunity because they're not learning, or because they're not understanding, or because with an F, before it was like, oh, you have an F, so now you don't have the ability. Or a lot of students were like, oh no, like I'm dumb. A lot of students thought because you're having an F, or because they just didn't understand the topic and it was not well explained. So I think with a new grading system, the district is willing to give a student a chance to be more passionate and to be more focused on their learning.
This is, besides awesome. I was worried about the AI GPT chat stuff and how kids can just write a paper and be like this, but if they have to explain it, they really know it, and so it's not really cheating, because they have to explain how they got to that answer. So actually, that's really good. Yeah. So, good job. I think I love that video, and it's good. Yeah, it's really good.
Thank the students.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
The students as well.
I think it was so great to hear from the students what their perspective was like in this shift, because during the initial conversations, it was just me listening and getting inside of the teacher's side of things. But this is going to have such a big impact on so many students. And then hopefully whatever they decide to do after here. I know I struggled a lot when I got to the university because I didn't understand a lot of topics, and I just obviously passed my classes, but I didn't comprehend. But I also think with this new shift, not only are the students learning better, right? They're learning to be a better student.
Yes.
Because that's what we're all here for. I mean, they're here to be students and learn. And then also it's teaching the teachers how to, they know how to teach, but it's teaching them through learning from the students on how to teach so they can comprehend when everyone's at different levels, because we all know that students are at all different levels, but it was awesome to hear that like they're taking a moment to pause and reflect, and then the students are also teaching other students.
Powerful.
Versus just them sitting there and learning on their own. So everyone is learning
It's true.
together. And then you mentioned Mr. Adamia mentioned communication, like how does this work? Everyone is learning how to communicate in their own way. And that's the biggest key to figuring out how to learn is communication.
It's true.
Yeah, so it was so nice to see all of that kind of unfold. And I remember popping into the elementary schools and just listening to the elementary school students. I was so impressed by them teaching other students. Oh my goodness, if they're learning that now, the communication, I can't imagine when they get to middle school and high school level, that just learning how to communicate is going to have such an impact on their lives, even outside of just learning.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited.
And that's one of the reasons the grading system had to change, is because the way building identity, purpose, and agency, which is our graduate profile, and for a kid to become an agentic learner and to take that on, you can't collect evidence for that on a traditional scale. So the way that came into being was because the kids are pushing it to be like, we owe it to them to slog through this to figure out how to do it, because the other system doesn't reward that. It doesn't half the time acknowledge that. And so it's really doing the painful stuff now to figure out how do we do that, because you're right, it is, can we create learners, true learners that are agency, that have identity, that are able to do that piece. So I appreciate your patience and perseverance, just like we have to do with grading. It's sort of just the way this goes here, so.
I got something to say. Sure. Really strange, but my granddaughter came from school today, came to our house, and she's all fired up and everything, and I look at her and said, "What's wrong?" "I hate my math teacher."
Uh-oh.
And I says, "Why? What's going on with your math teacher?" "I do my work, I do my homework, and he still calls up my mom and says I don't get involved in classes." So I took all these notes.
Yep.
Now I know how to answer.
There you go. Yep. But you're right, because it's not about completion and compliance. It's about learning. Yeah.
And just one last thing is, for the longest time, for example, in the community, our school STAR has had this stigma around it, like, oh, these are the failing students. And I think this is going to be so helpful. We're hearing from some of the students there, is they all feel like I'm a part of my learning versus I'm a failing student. I'm so excited to see that, because people have always just seen it as like, oh, they're just failing students.
Yeah, they're just getting through. Yeah.
Yeah, so this is so awesome. Thank you.
And you have the valedictorian there, and you have a student who's from STAR from a different space, and they're saying the same thing. They're saying the same thing.
Very
That's powerful.
I know it's going to have a shift on the way that even the folks, the teachers there at STAR will see their students too. I think so. Not that they don't see them any differently. I just think that we just have this bias around.
And they're so articulate.
Yes, they
I mean,
are. Oh my goodness.
That's
They're
amazing.
very smart. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Did you have a comment?
It's okay.
Go ahead, Mr. Rodriguez, go ahead.
Yeah, you can say.
Come back.
Sorry.
It's okay.
We forgot one.
Thanks, Ms. Benton, for the presentation and the students. One of the constant themes that I heard throughout every one of the presentations was that it's a collaborative effort.
Yeah.
You know, it's not about passing to pass, it's passing because you've learned the subject. You know, our goal as board members is to have everybody highly proficient, and we know that's not going to happen. But getting the understanding that the teacher is confident that she left that day knowing that that student grasped what was taught. And at the end of the day, at the end of the semester, at the end of the year, that's our goal.
Yeah.
If the teacher is confident that her students have passed because they've learned the core subject, that's going to reflect their scores at the state level.
Yep.
And I think this is a great way, and I know that it's been a struggle. I've heard from several people that, but as long as we get past that stigma of trying to pass somebody because they cleaned all the whiteboards, versus because they took the time and spent the time with their teacher to learn the subject matter. So that's what we want, and I think that we're on the right track, and I commend you and your staff, and don't give up.
We're hanging in.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Enrollment trends. It's like,
Okay, hopefully you guys can see that. Can you magnify that real quick, Shane? Good evening, Madam President.
Make it big.
President, yeah, members of the governing board, Superintendent Costello.
your finger on the screen to make it big.
Yeah, it's kind of hard when you have all of those numbers. That's good, Shane. Can you scroll down just a little bit? So we'll go ahead and get started. So this year currently, so today's the 15th day, and we ran these numbers this morning. So these are as of probably like noon or just before noon. We updated the numbers. They do fluctuate on a daily basis. Kids come and go pretty much on a daily basis. So what we have for this year to start on day 15 is for the 23-24 school year is we're sitting at 14,247 students compared to 14,637 students from last year. We're down about 190. We're down 190 students from the year before. Obviously, some sites have lost a little more students than others. Those sites that have waiting lists are busy calling those students that are on waiting lists. They're making calls to all those students that are missing, trying to locate students, see where they're at, if they've gone to other schools. If they do go to other schools, we'll catch it on our state reporting side. When we run the reports, it shows, that they've enrolled somewhere else, and then we change our codes accordingly to make sure they match, to show that they're not, W4s or dropouts or that sort of thing. So when it comes down to that, but finding some of those missing students, like I said, sites are making calls on that. Can you scroll down a little bit, Shane, to the bottom sheets, that bottom part of it? Go ahead. So this, you guys, everybody's probably seen this graph a little bit. So these are the projections that were run a couple years ago. So right now, our Sunnyside projection for our average daily membership is running at around 13,366. The study that was run a couple years ago was putting us at 13,414. So we're pretty close to that enrollment. We're still up over enrollment-wise 14,000 students for the 15th day.
Just
when it comes to that.
So the blue line you see there was a demographic study that was done 2019, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously it shows a downward trend year after year, right? We're not going to get any bigger. The red line there you see, that's based off of ADN, and those are our predictions, and our predictions have held true, right? So although there's a downward trend, it's not at a 2% rate that the demographic study was showing it at. It's a lot less. So for example, last year, I believe it was like 0.84% loss, not 2%, and so, in terms of our data, the 14,247, that's still less than the 2% that it's showing. And so, as Mr. Magallanes said, we have some schools a little bit, who have lost more students, a little bit further down than we anticipated. We're working on reaching out to some of those, especially the ones on the waiting list, as he had mentioned. However, it's we're still over 14,000, which I would have thought we'd probably been a little bit below that, just according to the trend. So that's where we're at. I just wanted to clarify the blue line and the red line.
Yeah, because what that's telling us is currently we're still trending a little bit higher than that projection. We're up on that. We're still down, but we're still up higher than that projection at over like Superintendent Costello said, over 14,000 students.
We're projected to be at 13,366. That was the projection, and we're at again 14,247. So although we know as we go throughout the year that we'll take another little dip, in terms of throughout the year, but it's promising that we're above 14,000, and we'll take that. Obviously the questions are always with some of the new developments going up in the district. Is that going to impact enrollment? Well, hopefully it does. We don't know yet, right? There hasn't been another demographic study done. In terms of kinder numbers and correct me if I'm incorrect, I think,
Let's go back up.
we're a little down, in terms of kinder numbers. When you look at high school numbers, high schools have done a pretty nice job of keeping their enrollment, both are in the green, if you look at.
Sunnyside and Star both have positive enrollment. Desreview's down slightly, but not a whole lot when it comes to those
Overall,
numbers.
high school's up.
Yeah.
But-
And our kinder numbers, they are a little bit lower than previous years. This sheet doesn't reflect, because it was just, total enrollments, but we can run and we can pull it at your request if you want to see what our kinder numbers looked like, in previous years. When it comes down to that, those numbers, will fluctuate. You can see the specific cohorts, which cohorts had smaller kinder numbers, because you'll see those are the smaller cohorts, which ones had larger kinder numbers when it comes down. And it looks like it's a cycle of like 3 to 5 years where you'll have a downward trend in kinder cohorts when they start the school year, as opposed to previous years. It kind of comes and goes, and you'll see that with, I think, our 5th graders this year, and then I think the senior class, which those numbers are a little bit lower in comparison to previous years. So those are those low kinder cohort years, and you see that reflected in the enrollment when they start school, or when they're finishing school and starting school.
Yeah. And I think with the new schools that are starting, they're probably taking some of our kids as well.
Possibly. Also SOSA, we no longer have SOSA.
Right.
So, I know some of those kids returned to us and some of them didn't. They wanted the virtual option all
Right.
day.
Right.
So,
And
Yeah.
when we did the demographic study, there was no growth that was planned anywhere in the district. So now we're getting houses.
Yeah, and
everywhere.
looking at that, it's probably within the next year or two, it's probably wise to probably do another demographic study with the amount of construction and housing developments that are going up in the district. We have those developments over in the Littletown area, and then there's still, I think, planned development that's further right at our border, further east, the easternmost part of the district. So, probably in the next year or so, it'd probably be wise to do another demographic study to really look, because as you look, we are trending down, but our trend is still higher than that first demographic study. And as it goes down, our trend is still trending down, but it's still above that demographic study. So it's not trending down at the same rate.
Anybody have any questions? No? Okay.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Arizona School Boards Association selection of board's official representative and alternative to the delegate assembly.
I'd like to make a motion to approve Becky Quintero, representative to the delegate assembly.
Second.
Is that my gift?
You accept?
I don't hear a second. Oh, did you second turn? Okay. I'll accept. On that note, I will nominate Ted Rodriguez as alternate.
Second.
Thank you. Do you accept?
I accept.
Okay.
You'll like it.
Okay. Happy birthday to me. Okay. Do we need roll call? Yes, okay.
I'm going to do one roll call for both.
Okay.
Mr. Bustamante,
Yes.
Miss Hernandez,
Aye.
Mr. Jaramillo,
Aye.
Mr. Rodriguez,
Yes.
and Mrs. Quintero.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Change of governing board meeting dates. There's a reason. Did you want to talk about the reason why we're changing the meeting dates?
Yeah, we can. Absolutely. We can definitely discuss the reasons. So the request is to change the September 26th board meeting to October 3rd. The articulation for that board change is, some members of our leadership team have been invited back to present at the Battelle for Kids conference. And so, this is one of the conferences we attended last year, and it's a partnership we also had with Columbus City Schools, and so we presented work, in regards to our graduate profile and some of the work that we've done with, identity, purpose, and agency. And so they've invited us back to present, and there's going to be a national conference in St. Louis, Missouri. And so that was the reason we wanted the other reason we wanted to change it is last year what we did is we did a morning meeting where it was a consent agenda meeting, but with just the amount of things that need board approval, we wanted to make sure we had a full meeting, and that would take place on October 3rd, the following week. In terms of October 17th, we'd be getting back from fall break, and so we were only scheduled to have that one meeting in October, and we wanted to push it back a week to give us some room to prepare for that meeting as well. So the changes would be 9/26 to 10/3 and 10/17 to 10/24.
You want to make a motion? You want to make a motion?
Yeah. I'd like to make a motion to amend the meeting dates for our regular governing board meeting from September 26th through October 3rd, and also move the October 17th meeting to October 24th.
Second. Roll call.
Mr. Bustamante?
Yes.
Ms. Hernandez?
Aye.
Mr. Jaramillo?
Aye.
Mr. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Mrs. Quintero?
Aye. Thank you. Do we have any suggestions for future board agenda items?
I'd like to make a
Mr.
comment on the one that called the audience today. To make sure the word gets out for the tour for Davis Mountain Air Force Base for the two functions, but also if for our students or the company adults, is there a security requirement prior to going into the base?
Oh, okay.
Okay, so I know that a lot of times in the past, when we took the ROTC students to the base, that they had to have some security clearance. And I'd like to also have you can also give us a presentation or on the Narcan and what the type of training that we have for our staff and maybe students as well, and how it actually works. How effective is it? I'd like to see have some of that presentation.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Any others? No? Are you going to advertise the Constitution Day?
Yeah, we'll put that out to our teams.
Okay, I think I didn't write it down, so that's okay. Yeah, I'm good. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Constitution Day is 9/17/20.
Right. Motion to adjourn?
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Bustamante?
Yes.
Ms. Hernandez?
Aye.
Mr. Jaramillo?
Aye.
Mr. Rodriguez?
Yes.
And Mrs. Quintero?
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
And good. And oh, there's cake. Let's go eat cake.
Don't forget the fire extinguisher.
Oh, thank you.
Always gonna be a wise guy.
Always. The sister said the same thing. Don't start the fire.
Now I can actually talk to my grandmother.
Yes.
I don't know what the hell she was talking about.
And this is great because talking to the kids is important.
Here's the
Oh, this is what you're talking about.
This is the state bill for county, and this is the city of Tucson.
I didn't know you were an inspector.
Yeah, 19 years.
With the city or county?
I
I'm gonna meet with the county zoning board, so that's part of my district.
Well, Debbie Morales used to work for us as well on the board. You know, always like a friend the way this got started was in 2011. The county expected to do restrictions, and you notice all this work going on in national business. So we called the office and said, what's going on in Pine building official for Human County called the district superintendent and inquired about what's going on. We don't see anything on our ledger for the team. We don't have to get